Unfortunately, I think everyone has a personal story when it comes to bullying in some degree or shape or form, but we're hearing a lot about it now, especially here on social media. And the thing is with the advantage of social media, bullying really can happen anywhere.
It's very true. And joining us for our first segment today are two young ladies who want to stop bullying in its tracks, Lauren Paul and Molly Thompson, who have both experienced female bullying. They were inspired to start the KIND campaign to bring awareness to the issue of girl against girl aggression. Sometimes that can be the worst kind. They traveled to schools across the country, and they spread their message of kindness. Today they're going to share their story with us. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi. Good, how are you?
We also have another guest joining us for this conversation to give us a mental health angle on this very tough topic. We have Dr. Gail Saltz, who's a mental health, sex, and relationship contributor to the Today Show. And we are excited to hear how she's going to kind of bring some of the science and the therapist angle to this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Gail.
It's a pleasure.
Now, guys, I was bullied in school. I know it's hard to believe with these bangs, but I was. And, and I have to say it came from sort of all genders, boys and girls, but, how do you think the internet has kind of changed the way bullying is taking place now? Because I can't even imagine how, tough it must be for kids.
I think when we go into schools, it's so prevalent and it's everywhere. Like you said earlier, it follows you everywhere you go. I just remember when I was in middle school going through my own bullying experience, it was traumatic, but I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have an Instagram or a Facebook account or any of that. Really the extent of any sort of cyberbullying that took place was instant messenger, having girls make fake accounts and kind of harassing me through that. So going into schools now and seeing how you truly can't escape these social pressures when you leave those hallways. It follows you home, it follows you to your sports game, it follows you everywhere. And I truly can't imagine having to deal with that. Going back in time to school, I just can't imagine. It's so difficult, and it's just so much easier, I think, to bully because of it.
So what exactly is the KIND campaign, and just tell us a little bit more about your mission.
Yeah, so Lauren and I started KIND campaign when we were seniors at Pepperdine University, and really it originated, Lauren approached me right before our senior year with this idea to shoot a documentary film about females and the way that we treat one another. And she had that desire and passion because of an experience that she had in middle school, and she didn't know it at the time, but I also had an experience in high school, so I just jumped at the opportunity to do this together. And so it really originated with our film, Finding Kind, but we quickly realized that we wanted to do more because this was such a serious issue that is truly affecting girls and women. We would sit down with women and they could recall every detail of an experience that they had in middle school, and girls and women and females in general were just so willing to open up about the experiences that they were having. So that's where the idea for KIND campaign, our nonprofit organization, really started. And so we wanted to do whatever we could to bring an end to the way that girls treat each other, but really also to start a dialogue about this issue. And so for the past 5 years, we've been traveling all over the country and speaking in schools and communities about this issue and really starting a dialogue about how this isn't a rite of passage. This shouldn't be accepted as the norm, and this needs to stop. And it can stop because we all play a role in this.
Wow. I mean, I think that's really amazing. I guess one thing I'm really interested to hear from Dr. Gail on is, do you think that this is something that is more prevalent with girls than with boys? Because, I mean, I kind of remember from my personal experience boys teasing each other, but I'm curious to know if you think it's more prevalent with girls.
It goes on for boys and girls, and stylistically it may be different in that girls are more likely to be verbally aggressive and boys more likely to be physically aggressive, although we're seeing an increase in physical aggression in girls. We're seeing girls, have knockdown, drag-out fights or hit, but typically it is more sophisticated, it is more covert, more manipulative, and but every bit as traumatic. It may not be physical, but emotional wounds are every bit as traumatic, sometimes more traumatic. And what I see is women who suffer the after effects of having been bullied, difficulty having intimacy, the fear of being betrayed, of being hurt, of having low self-esteem. There are really ongoing effects, even depression later in life, from recurrent trauma caused by bullying earlier on.
Now, I have a question because, I've read about your campaign, girls, and I think it's incredible work that you're doing, but I'm genuinely curious, like when you go into these schools to speak to these kids, what is the effect that you guys have? Because I'm thinking back to when I was a kid, and if there was like an assembly, let's say an anti-bullying assembly, which there wasn't, I'm not sure if it would have helped things. So how do you make sure that you're making a difference?
Well, I think first and foremost, and this is not only just our experience going in and seeing how it affects girls, but hearing feedback also afterwards. Just the fact that we are the age that we are. We started this when we were 22, but we go in with jeans and a t-shirt and little to no makeup, and or not no makeup, but just very minimal, just really natural, and let's be honest. And I think that really has a profound effect on their ability to connect with us. They see us as peers, people that are not so much older than them. So we really go in. We do a lot of things with them. We share our testimony so they see we've been there just a few years ago. We screen our film, which is very, very powerful. And then after the film, we do a bunch of interactive activities where we have a discussion, and then we give them the chance to use their voice, one of which is with a pledge that they take to bring an end to this in some sort of format. An apology card where all the girls write an apology to another girl for something that they've said or done, and then finishing up on a really positive note with a kind card, which is giving girls the opportunity to stand in front of their peers and share something kind about another girl in the room. And it's amazing to see how giving them that power to use your voice in a positive way, it's like a light switch goes off, and they're so inspired to be kind and to kind of break this norm that we're used to. But I think it all kind of goes back to that ability to connect with us and being able to look at these girls and say, we were in your chairs just a few years ago, and this is what I wish I would have done differently. I wish I wasn't a bystander. I wish I wouldn't have gotten so caught up in it. And just reminding them that their school experience is not their entire story, to be able to try and see outside of those school hallways. Sure. I think it's just kind of powerful to see us more as a peer, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely think that does go a long way, because there's a big difference between their teachers telling them and then to self-made young women who are, very approachable and really know how to speak their language. So I think that goes a very long way. But Dr. Gail, I wanted to know if you have some tips or strategies or things that these young women and adults, because it's not just young girls that are being bullied. I see it on Twitter all the time.
Yes. People are so emboldened unfortunately, by being behind a screen in social media. They will say things that they would never say in person. But she brought up such an important point, which is it's not just that she's not the teacher. The fact is the teachers aren't doing this. What you're doing is trying to teach empathy. And that can be taught if it were being brought into school. So that is unique that you are doing that. The idea that let's stand in someone else's shoes and imagine how it would feel and therefore act accordingly. And the other important word you said is the bystander, because we do know about bullying that the bystander can make the biggest difference of all, much more so. The victim actually has a very difficult time making a difference, even if they stand up for themselves. But if the bystanders stand up together, that is actually what ends bullying, essentially. So empowering girls to be bystanders, to tell them that actually they do own a role there and that they can make a difference there, and that if they can be empathic in that role, they can make a huge difference in the emotional tenor of the school. So you're kind of bringing in some emotional intelligence. You're letting them identify with you, which they can do because you're young, which is great. But you're bringing in these ideas of relating to that the person sitting next to you that you might want to say something crummy to is you. And they're all you, and the bystanders are you too.
Well, it's funny. Bullying was actually like such a part of my kind of growing up. I was tall, whatever else, that I actually feel like it did shape the person that I am today, but I look at it as a positive thing, because like I feel like I'm more outspoken and I defend myself. You know what I'm saying? I was able to sort of I don't know, break out of it, you know, and I feel lucky that I have, but I'm sure there are a lot of kids that, you know, it's obviously not the same outcome. So, girls, I want to ask if, you know, any school wants you guys to come speak to their kids, how can they get in touch with you? How can a school kind of get you in there?
Yeah, well, our website, kindcampaign.com, has all of the information about who we are, what our story is, as well as a lot of the interactive features that Lauren was just talking about. So that's a great resource not only for schools to bring us in, but also for students and parents and teachers who want to do something right now if they can't get the film or the two of us to come immediately. But then to bring the film, Finding Kind, and the two of us into your school, you can visit findingkind.com and work with IndieFlix, which is our distribution company, to bring the film, to have a screening, or also to bring the two of us out to host an assembly in your school.
That's really awesome. You know, Michelle, I thought it was interesting that you brought up that bullying has kind of shaped who you are. I think I have a very similar experience, but on the other side, in that I was bullied for, you know, during middle school and a little bit of high school. And then once those girls left the school and I became cool, instead of using my powers for good, I kind of became a bully in my own way. It was kind of like I had been conditioned to act that way.
That's a very common, that is so, most bullies at some point or another have been bullied. It might even have been at home.
I'm guilty of it too, by the way. I had a moment in middle school where I also had to kind of break out, you know, and it was that, it's exactly what you're saying. It's awful, you know, but I think it also probably goes back to their home lives, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's happening that's making these kids act this way, you know?
Well, there's a professional in our film that says a really amazing quote. He says, people hurt because they are hurt. And that's such a big part of Kind Campaign. It's not about pointing the fingers and saying, oh, this is a mean girl and that's what this looks like. It's about pointing the finger at ourselves, because we have all been on both sides of this. I have as well, so has Molly. Like, we've all thought things we shouldn't have, partaken in gossip that we shouldn't have. So it's really about recognizing that we've all been there, and it's that universal experience that we can really band together and create change.
Well, by also letting girls know that it doesn't have to be an eat or be eaten situation.
Right.
You know, I mean, sometimes you bully, it's called repetition compulsion. You're trying to work through the trauma that you had, and you do that by repeating the behavior. But if somebody can step in and interrupt and say, look, talk to me about what hurt you. Let's try to help you process that and not have to just behave it, but talk about it in a way, share it in a way that you can heal, as opposed to just acting it out. And also create an environment where teachers are willing to step in, administration is willing to engage in the dialogue, because that is what keeps students from feeling it's unsafe to be anything other than the bully. In other words, if I'm not the bully, then I'm going to be bullied. Then it feels dangerous. But that's where parents have to feel they can go to the school, their kid can go to them, they can talk to administration. Schools really, really need to be more proactive and introduce things like this that are teaching emotional intelligence, essentially, at a younger age.
I'm really glad that you brought that up.
I want to send you a check. I'm just going to say I feel like I owe you money for this wonderful conversation. Like, tell me what you charge by the hour, because really I'm learning so much. No, thank you. I should do this every week.
Something else I wanted to mention when you were talking about the schools, it's been amazing going into schools, because that means that they care about their students and they are trying to start this very important dialogue. And so I also wanted to mention, I forgot to say this earlier, but we also have a curriculum that schools can adopt, whether they have a screening or have us come there. Schools all over the country have adopted this year-long curriculum, which really creates honest dialogue and really breaks down the cliques and the barriers that are oftentimes in the school hallways that lead to these events taking place. So the Kind Club curriculum is also available on our website as well.
And you guys actually are developing a camp, correct?
We are. We're excited. On February 22nd in Los Angeles, we teamed up with Julianne Hough. We're so excited about it. It's something we've been wanting to do for years, but just haven't had really the time or resources to wrap our heads around it. But we're getting 160 middle school and high school girls from the greater LA area to come together for a day of kind-related conversation, just girl topics, with all of that culminating into a Kind Campaign assembly and screening at the end of the day. And we're going to have amazing speakers and activities, and it's just going to be awesome. We're excited.